Week number 1 of the 2020 NFL season is in the books. It is time for week number 2. We're turning the page after many weeks of anticipation of whether or not this season was going to happen. It's happening. We're in the middle of it. We're moving on to week number 2. In this video, as always, as I do every single Wednesday night, we are going to break down this week's slate of the NFL, give you my picks straight up, and my picks versus the spread. Before I give you my preview of every game and my picks, make sure you do Gronk, spike the like button, and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL previews every week, just like this. Subscribe to the Bottom Line View and comment your opinion, whether you're live or you're watching this after the fact. Let me know who you think is going to win this week. What are your best bets this week in the NFL? Let me know in the comment section, live or below, after watching this video. As always, guys, I'm going to be looking at the comments live after a few games. I'm going to preview a few games and get to some of the comments. I'm going to leave most of the comments to the end. It's difficult to do the comments and preview games at the same time, so I'm going to leave it up to you guys. But what's going on, everybody in the chat? We already have quite a few of you in the chat, so thanks for joining me here live. You know the drill. Let's get it going. Week number 2 of the 2020 NFL season is here. But before I do break down the games and start off with Thursday Night Football between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns, I do have an announcement. Some of you may know this, but I have rebooted the Bottom Line View on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account, if you love this channel, I recommend you do head over to Instagram and give us a follow on the Bottom Line View. I'm going to be posting exclusive content on Instagram. That means it will not be found on YouTube. It will not be found on my personal Instagram or Twitter. You can follow me there as well, especially the Twitter where I constantly tweet at Mitch Milani. But if you want to follow the channel, things like top 10 teams of the week, things like my picks every week, things like best bets possibly, Ultra is going to be on there. Kevin Durkant giving his freezing cold takes. There's going to be a lot of exclusive content on Instagram that you will not find anywhere else, so do give us a follow there on Instagram. All right, that's the plug. Let's get into the matchups, starting off with Thursday Night Football. Oh, wait, I got to give you how I did last week. I forgot about that. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while. How did I do last week? So let's check it out. Straight up, I went 11-5. Straight up, I went 11-5. So that's pretty good. Especially for the first week, I think that's pretty good. 11-5. Spread-wise versus the spread, I didn't do as hot, okay? I did miss on quite a few games in terms of I picked the team to win, but then I didn't go all in on their victory. I thought the games would be a little bit closer in week 1. I was wrong. I went 7-8-1 versus the spread, the 1 meaning that the number, it ended up being a tie. And then my best bets, which you can find on Patreon, I went 3-2, which is 60%, which is like pro better standard. That's what you're trying to hit, 55 to 60%. I should have went 4-1 if it weren't for Steven Gostkowski, but that's a conversation for a different day. And the Indianapolis Colts, I got that game wrong as well. I had them covering the first half. Both of my best bets that I lost, I was within half or 1 point of making it 5-0. So I felt like I had a pretty good feel for week 1. I do feel week 2 is a little bit more challenging. I actually typically have more trouble with week 2 than I do with week 1. Because week 2, it's hard for me as a fan and to watch every game as I've done and go back and study each game and watch the film of each game. It's hard for me to not go too far in terms of what I've seen. I need to be more in the middle. I got to be, more water. Okay? I can't be just overreacting. And a lot of times what we do in week 2 is we overreact to what happens in week 1. And it's very difficult to predict games in week 2, probably even more so than in week 1 because of what we've seen this season. So, I'm going to try to remember that as I make these picks. Okay? So now, without further ado, let's get to my picks. Keep the comments coming, guys. Keep the comments flowing. All right, so week number 2. Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. This is Thursday Night Football. This is the Battle of Ohio. Both teams are 0-1. The Cleveland Browns are -6 points in this game. I watched both these games. I gotta say, I already think Joe Burrow is better than Baker Mayfield. You heard it here first. Better than Baker Mayfield is Joe Burrow already. I've only seen him play one game, but that's all I need. Baker Mayfield might have been, and in my personal opinion, he was the worst starting quarterback in week 1 of the 2020 season. So Joe Burrow, advantage Bengals for the quarterback position. Now, outside of that, I don't have a ton of confidence in the Bengals. I will say I was impressed with what I saw defensively from Cincinnati, but I don't know how much of that was, okay, they played Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers, or how much they actually improved. I will say I think Cincinnati's secondary is underrated. It's actually very underrated. I thought William Jackson played excellent. Jesse Bates, guys, that guy is a baller. He played really well. Von Bell in the mix as well. They already have injuries, though, up front, and as well as their linebacker position. I thought Bynes played very well in his first game as a Bengal. He's already got the C. He's already captain for their defense, and as well as Pratt, who's another linebacker that they have that not a lot of people know of. But I do see improvement at the second level and in the secondary for this defense for Cincinnati. The defensive line, DJ Reader left the game last week, I believe. I don't know if he's playing this week or not. I'm not exactly sure. If somebody does know, let me know. I do know that Geno Atkins has already been ruled out, and Mike Daniels. So their defensive tackle position is significantly undermanned. They still have Carlos Dunlap, Sam Hubbard, Carl Lawson, who all played well versus the Chargers last week. So I actually think the defenses are going to be in control of this game for the most part. I think it's going to be more of a defensive game than people expect. I also think that the Browns are going to run the ball a lot more than they did last week. They were still very efficient last week in terms of running the football. Nick Chubb, I think, had 10 carries for 60 yards. That's 6 yards per clip, right? And then Kareem Hunt as well. They need to run the football more. They were effective running it versus Baltimore. They got away with it, or got away from it because of how the game unfolded, right? Because of how good the Ravens were offensively versus their defense. So that means I think the score is going to be lower in this game. It's going to be more about time of possession, and I think the score is going to be probably the low 20s, the high teens. So that is why I'm taking the Bengals plus 6 points, because I think it's going to be close. I also think the Bengals can sneakily match up with the Browns in terms of their receivers and the passing game, and just the fact that Baker looks real rough out there. But they're going to get ran all over, I think. Without their defensive tackles and those big guys in the middle, it's really going to hurt their run D. On the opposite side of the football, I think that they don't got to deal with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, but they do got to deal with Myles Garrett. So there is a bit of that for Joe Burrow. But AJ Green looked good. Tyler Boyd should be more involved. They're not facing the Ravens for the Browns, and they're not facing the Chargers for the Bengals. So those are both positives. I'm going to say that it's 20-13. 20. I'm going to say like it's a field goal game. I think, again, for the Bengals, they're going to make this very competitive. I'm going to say 20-17. I'm going to go with the Browns, but I want to pick the Bengals because of how poorly Baker played. But I can't completely sell out the Browns yet. I did pick them to go to the playoffs. So I got to stick with that at least for the first 2 weeks. And considering they did get shellacked by the Ravens, the Ravens are a legitimate top-tier team, okay? Top-tier team. So taking that into consideration, taking those injuries for the Bengals into consideration, I'm going to go with the Browns. but I'm only going to say they win by 3 or 4 points. I don't think it's going to be by a lot. This Battle of Ohio hopefully is a good game. Hopefully. And hopefully we get better out of Baker and Odell. They just got to trade Odell, I think, because it's just not working, guys. Like, the combo is just not working. But that's my pick. Cincinnati +6, Cleveland to win the game. Let's go with that. Game number 2. The Carolina Panthers travel to Tampa Bay. The Bucs are -8.5 in this game. This game is going to be fascinating just to see where the Bucs are at. I'm not even really looking at the Panthers in this game. Shove their face to the side, okay? It's all about the Bucs, because we understand that they played the Saints in week 1. So I picked the Saints. If you watched this video last week, I picked the Saints to win. I picked the Saints to cover. So that was expected. But where are the Bucs in comparison to a team that is not nearly as talented as them? They're probably one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they're certainly one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So Chris Godwin or no Chris Godwin, he's in concussion protocol right now. They're going to pass all over the Panthers. They're going to run all over the Panthers. The Bucs should score 30 plus points. If they don't, I'll be disappointed. On the opposite side, the Panthers offense looked good, but now they're playing a real defense. They're not playing a college defense in the Las Vegas Raiders. They're playing a real defense. The Bucs defense was spectacular in week 1 versus the New Orleans Saints. I expect a turnover or 2 in this game. I expect great tackling like we saw in week 1, a good pass rush, and of course, phenomenal run defense, not allowing Christian McCaffrey to get anything going. And I only expect better play from their secondary as they continue to develop as players and as minds, the Bucs defense in that secondary. Jamel Dean had a rough game versus the Saints. He should play better, fix some things there. And you got to factor in as well, Tom Brady being just angry, okay? This is going to be a little psycho Tom this week because he heard all of the things this week about the media, about his coach calling him out. A lot of stuff was going on. So I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to run over the Panthers in this game, and they will win. They will cover. I'm going to say it's going to be like 38-14, something like that. 38-14, a turnover or 2 by the defense. We're going to see what we saw from Tom last week in terms of precision throwing the football. His arm is still there, but I think he's going to be more so on the same page. And again, guys, remember, this is his first year in this offense. He's having to adjust to new players, a new offense. He's having to adjust to all of that. So that being said, I think they're going to continue week in and week out. As we continue to evolve with this offense, they're going to find more plays that Brady is comfortable with, and that the players, the receivers are comfortable with, what this offensive line is comfortable with. I just want to see the Bucs find their identity offensively because they have not been able to. But they will somewhat in this game, and they will win by a pretty big margin. So I'm taking the Bucs to win this one. Get some water real quick. All right. Next up, the Jacksonville Jags at the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are -9 points in this game. The Titans just squeaked by the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. The Jacksonville Jaguars won. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. They won a game. I know. Nobody saw it coming in week 1, but it happened. I really don't know what to do in the spread. Like, the spread is 9 points. It's really making me nervous that I just don't know if the Titans can cover 9 points versus anyone. But then on the flip side, the Titans have dominated the Jags as of late. They did lose one game to them last season, and Gardner Minshew was at the helm. But I don't know if that's enough for me to say necessarily it's tough that they can cover. I'm going to take the Titans to win, and this is going to be one of those ones where I'm going to take I don't want to, I don't know if I trust the Jags after winning a divisional game to keep another one close. I feel like if the Jags lose, they're going to lose by a lot. Here's the problem. The Colts ran the football very well versus the Jags. And I think the Titans can do the same thing. But I like Minshew. I think he played really well, and I think their offense can move the ball. So basically what I'm saying here is do not bet on this game at all. Do not. Just don't. Please. I don't know what's going to happen, so don't do it. I'm going to take the Titans to win and to cover. I'm going to chicken out of taking the points, and the reason is I think if the Titans get control of the game, it's going to be very difficult for Jacksonville to make it up in the second half and win. But I did not like what I saw from the Titans last week. They had a lot of the time of possession. That was a good thing. And they should have won that game by more points than they did. But I don't know. And I guess the Broncos defense is a lot better than Jacksonville. So there's that. Yeah, I just really don't have a feel for this game. This is the game that I don't have a feel for at all. Out of all the games, I just really don't know where to go. I don't really have a feel for Cleveland, Cincinnati, but I do sort of. This game is more so stay away. Stay away. But I do have to make a pick, so I'm going to go with the Titans both ways. The Titans to win and the Titans to cover. All right. New York Giants versus the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are -5.5. They pulled off the crazy comeback versus the Detroit Lions last week. And if they get down versus another team like that, it's not going to happen again. Okay, guys? It's not going to happen again because I think it was a 99.6 probability that the Lions win that game. That's how crazy that comeback was. So have fun with that comeback while it lasts. They just can't get behind the Giants like they did in that game. But they won't. I think it will stay close. This game will be close throughout for 4 quarters. I am definitely taking the points here. I am taking the Giants with 5.5 because they have the better quarterback. I actually was impressed with the Giants coaching from both sides of the football, mostly defensively, especially in that first half versus the Steelers. I just don't think that the Bears can make enough big plays in the passing game versus the weakness of the Giants. I think the Giants are going to throw blitzes and things that they threw at the Steelers that threw them off their game just at Trubisky. But Trubisky is not Big Ben Roethlisberger. He simply is not. Daniel Jones, I love a lot. I think he is a baller, man. And I don't think Saquon is going to struggle as much as he did versus the Steelers. He's not. He's just not. Their receiving core is also good with potentially Golden Tate coming back this week. That would help. But Darius Slayton looks good. Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, those are all mismatches that really the Bears didn't have to deal with versus the Lions. They didn't have to deal with Kenny Golladay. I do think the Giants receiving core is underrated. I think the Giants upset the Bears here. I'm going to go with the Giants. Why? Because I think they have the better quarterback. And there's actually a statistic that I read today that a lot of teams that are 0-1 bounce back in the second week versus teams that are 1-0. This actually happens quite often, where teams that are 0-1 with their backs against the wall, trying to find their first win, beat the teams that aren't necessarily great, but go 1-0. And I think that's the Bears. I think they fall into that category. So I think this is a case of the Giants actually competed with a playoff caliber team in the Steelers. But yes, they did lose, while the Bears kind of got a fluky victory in week 1. So I think the Giants come out and they have more success offensively than we think they're going to have. And then defensively, I think they do enough to confuse Trubisky into a couple turnovers, which ultimately allows them to win this game. I expect a bounce back from Saquon, and I expect the Giants to win 20-16. Take the points in this game for sure. Not as certain about who wins, but I do like the points, the 5.5 with the Giants. Atlanta at Dallas. Dallas is -4.5, their first opening home game of the season in Jerry World. I believe they're expected to have about half the audience or, half the fan base there, in the stands. Atlanta, they are coming off a game where I really don't know what to make of them because they played a good team in Seattle. They played a team that has Russell Wilson, and they basically got torched in their secondary, but their offense, their passing game did look good. On the flip side, Dallas lost because they got out-coached and out-schemed, with Sean McVay having a great game plan and really just play after play, you could tell the Rams were better prepared than Dallas. And I think Sean McVay, more so than the talent on the Rams, won that game for them. Atlanta does not have the coaching that the Rams have, on offense or on defense, in my opinion. And they don't have the absolute studs of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. I think the Cowboys win. I think the Cowboys cover for more than just the fact that they're more talented. But Dallas at home is a different team. Dallas at home is a lot better. And I understand it's a dome and Atlanta's going to be used to that. But Atlanta's secondary is such an issue to me. I think the fact that Dallas's offensive line is better than Atlanta's, so their pass rush will be able to dictate better in this game than Atlanta's defensive line versus Cowboys' offensive line. And then the fact that I do think the Cowboys secondary is better than Atlanta's secondary. While I feel like both teams, their passing game is both good, I'm going to lean with the team that can run the ball better, can dictate pace of play better. I think overall at home, Dallas is usually a much better team. So I'm going to take Dallas to win and Dallas to cover. I'm not confident about the cover part, but I could see them winning, from 5 to 14 points. I don't think it's going to be more than 2 touchdowns. But Dallas is typically a team that is much better when it comes to a comeback game. They're much better after they lose a game and then they become awake, and then they play. That's kind of the way Dallas is. Their players rise to the occasion after they lose, at least in recent seasons. I do want to see some different stuff. I want to see them pass the ball more. Dallas and Atlanta, I think they need to be a little bit, different on defense. They had so many flaws on defense, and their running game and their offense, they took no pressure off of Matt Ryan. I don't see Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott being Russell Wilson this week, but I do think he puts up 300 yards, and I do think he puts up 3 touchdowns. So I'm going to go with Dallas here. And Zeke looked really good. That's something I haven't talked about yet, but Zeke looked really, really good in the first week, and I got to give him credit for that. So Dallas will win, and Dallas will cover. All right. Guys, before we get to one of the streams of the week, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View if you haven't already for weekly NFL previews. Also, get in that comment section and let me know what you think about week 2 of the NFL season. Here it is, guys. Here it is. Green Bay, Detroit, week 2. When I predicted the records for both of these teams, I said Detroit would win this game. After week 1, do I still believe Detroit will win this game? I don't know. I really don't. I like what I saw from Green Bay. I did. I like what I saw from Aaron Rodgers, most importantly. He looked like old Aaron Rodgers. He looked like himself. He was making the throws. He was being more aggressive down the field. He wasn't being conservative. There are some things that I think Detroit is much better off versus Green Bay than Minnesota is. I think before the season, people think that the Vikings are better than the Lions. Now, I'm not one of those people. And I'm also, especially after week 1, not one of those people. I think the Vikings suck. And I think a lot of people are going to overreact to Green Bay blowing them out, basically. There was garbage time stuff. I think the Vikings suck. I think these two teams are better than the Vikings. All right? And I think the Lions are a much better matchup. Much better matchup versus Green Bay because their secondary is way better, and I understand that they have issues in terms of injuries and stuff. What's going on, Sports Fury? Shout out to you guys. I understand that Detroit has issues in the secondary, and they have those injuries. But they're going to be tight, man-to-man coverage, like they always are, and the Lions play the Packers very well. Look at recent games that they've played. The Lions swept them 2 seasons ago, and I think without Matt Stafford, they forced a field goal game. The game before that with Matthew Stafford, they lost by, I think, 1 or 2 points due to the Trey Flowers penalties. But you could argue Green Bay is a better team this year. I mean, just the way they looked in week 1. So this is a really interesting game. If Kenny Golladay is back in the lineup, and if Kenny Clark is okay, that's a big injury. Watch out for this injury. Kenny Clark is hurt. Kenny Clark, the big nose tackle for Green Bay. If he's not there, Detroit could easily run for 100 yards because he is essential to their run defense. Without him, they might be the worst run defense in the league. So Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift could have success on the ground there. This is going to be a duel, I think, between both quarterbacks. But the way Aaron Rodgers played in week 1, you just can't bet against it. You just can't. I want the Lions to win, and I will take the 6 points. But Aaron Rodgers looked too good for me not to pick Aaron Rodgers. So I don't care what the rest of the team looks like. And even if the matchups maybe favor the Lions, that's why I'm going to take the points. And it will be close. But I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers because he looked like the bad man last week. So that's why I'm going with them. All right. So that's going to be one of the streams of the week. As you can see, that's going to be on Sunday. The game's at 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. for me. So I'll be streaming that game. And I'm also going to be streaming the Sunday Nighter, which we'll get to when we get to that. But I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, even if I pick Detroit to win before the season, because I do like how Detroit matches up with Green Bay. If Detroit wins, though, they're back on track. If they fall to 0-2, it's desperation time, and Matt Patricia is definitely in the hot seat. So, next game. What do we got next? What's going on, guys? Ooh, Bethel says 31-10 Packers. They look like a complete team. Rob has no confidence in the Lions defense. It is hard to after Trubisky just lit them up. It's definitely hard. All right. Next. I just said it like 3 times. I don't think the Vikings are good. But on the flip side, the Colts just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, that happened. That was real. That was not a dream. That actually happened. It actually happened. So, we gotta judge both sides here. Wow. So who do I pick? The team that got shredded by Aaron Rodgers or the team that got shredded by Gardner Minshew? I'm taking the team that got shredded by Gardner Minshew, and there's a reason. The Indianapolis Colts did not punt versus Jacksonville and somehow lost. Meanwhile, Minnesota did much of their damage offensively when they were losing by 20 points. I mean, I just don't like what I see. I don't like what I see from their defense, but I definitely don't like what I see from Kirk Cousins and their offense. Even if they're going to run the football, which I don't think is going to be easy versus this front seven of the Colts that is good versus the run, and they got great tacklers, they got a good defensive line, it's going to be more difficult than it was versus Green Bay. The Vikings do not have a good drop back passing game. If it's not play action, I've said this many times, if it's not play action, they struggle really to do anything. It's hard for me to trust Phillip Rivers in any game versus any secondary. But if there is one that he can shred up, it's this secondary. It might be the worst in the NFL. It's right there with Atlanta and those teams. And without Danielle Hunter, people underestimate how good of a player he is and how much of a difference maker he is for the Vikings. I think the Colts, their loss was more of a case of some unlucky stuff, some fixable mistakes, while I feel like the Vikings legitimately have flaws. Not to mention, Minnesota's not at home. Minnesota's on the road in this game. And while it's still a dome, I'm going to take the Colts. The Colts I projected to win this division. I got to stick with them. And because it's only 3 points, I'm going to say, okay, we're going to give up the 3 points. We're going to say the Colts win and the Colts cover. It's not a game I'm super confident in, but I definitely, when I go back and watch these two teams play in week 1, I see way more flaws in the Vikings than I do in the Colts. And I actually do trust Phillip Rivers to play well versus this defense. While I don't know if Kirk Cousins has the stuff around him to really have success versus this Colts defense. While Minshew did, I mean, that is a divisional opponent, and they do have an underrated group around Minshew there, while the Vikings is kind of just Adam Thielen. I don't know. I'm going to go with the Colts. It's going to be a close game. I think it will be within, at least within 10, at least. But I'm going to go with the team that I do feel is better, that has less flaws. So, and I don't think the Vikings could take advantage of the Colts' flaws. So I'm going to go with the Colts. All right. We got an AFC East heater coming up. We got the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. But before we get to that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get some comments because there's a lot of you guys in here. So, and my voice, man, I really need some water. Today and yesterday. Just worn down. Maybe it was all the excitement from Sunday. Guys, if you haven't already, Gronk spike that like button. Let's try and get those likes up. It helps the channel. It helps other people see this video. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL picks and daily NFL content. All right. What's going on, guys? Joseph says, I think Indy will bounce back 21-20. I went 10-6 last week. Good for you, Joseph. Brian says, when you score the second most fantasy points in your league and lose, I hate when that happens. That typically happens to me, but I went undefeated in all of my fantasy leagues last week, so I was happy about that. Mr. Roaring Riot says, what's up, Mitch? What's going on? Opium says, Mitch, I know you saw that trap defense by Ramsey. Yes, it was awesome. Ramsey, honestly, is Ramsey so overrated by, people call him overrated all the time that he's underrated now? The guy is for sure a top 3 cornerback. He might even be top 2. Sports Fury says, that bottom line view neon sign is dope. I love it. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I love it too. I just got it not long ago. So, Korn says, Lions bounce back this week. That's a fact. Flexing on them. I hope so. I'm going to be streaming it, so I hope it happens, but we'll see. Jude said, do I start Hollywood or DJ Moore? I think oh, that's tough, man. Honestly, I'd go with Hollywood. Based on week 1, I was going to say DJ Moore because of where you drafted him, but DJ Moore does play the Bucs defense that you guys know I'm high on, and Hollywood Brown is a burner. He looked really good in week 1, and the Texans secondary is atrocious. So I'd probably go with Hollywood there. Gardner Minshew really went off. WTF. Gardner Minshew's kind of good. Like, I know it's funny, but he's kind of good. What else we got? Colts 40-37? Oh. Big Al says, went 12-4 last week. Hey, that's even better than me, so congrats. I went 11-5, which I thought was pretty good for week 1, but. Do I start Big Ben or Russell Wilson? Guys, I do fantasy videos. Why don't you comment the fantasy questions on the fantasy videos? But, yeah, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, you always start Russell Wilson, I think. Big Ben, who's he playing again? Denver? Yeah, that's still a tough matchup. Daniel says 31-20 Patriots. Let's go. All right. So I'm going to get back to the picks. I hope the Patriots win 31-20. I'd go berserk. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll talk about that. Okay. Cam Newton or Watson? Last one. Definitely Cam. Watson's going to get ripped apart. We're going to talk about that as well. Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Guys, this is the trap game of the week. Do not bet on this game. Now, I'm telling you right now, as an AFC East, I'll call myself the word expert, even though I hate that word. As an AFC East fan, do not bet on the Bills. I'm just telling you. I love the Bills. I think they're going to go very far this year. I think they're going to be very good. But Miami in September, when it's hot as balls, you do not want to take the spread. Like, even if they cover, I'm willing to take the risk that it will not happen. Okay? I am taking the Bills to win the game, but I am not confident in that, even though I think the Bills are way better than the Dolphins. I know Mason says it's Bills, it's easy. It is not easy. Okay, I'm trying to tell you, Miami in September is not easy. It's going to be hot. The Bills are not used to that. The Dolphins are. Yes, Fitzpatrick looked bad in week 1, but he played the Patriots secondary, guys. Everybody looks bad versus the Patriots secondary. I got to tell you this. Maybe not Russell Wilson because he's basically God. But, okay, there's a weird feeling about this game that I don't like this game. I'm going to pick the Bills because of their talent to squeak one out, but I'm not confident in it. And I'm going to take the Dolphins with the 6 points. 6 seems like too much for an AFC East matchup here. Yes, I think the Bills will have success with Josh Allen running the ball like the Patriots did with Cam Newton. But the Bills don't have Josh McDaniels or Bill Belichick. They don't have the scheme that New England has when it comes to that stuff, when it comes to the creativity. So I don't think it will be as successful or as good. The Dolphins defense, because of how New England looked and because of how New England attacked them in week 1, people are going to think it's worse than it is. But it's actually, they're very talented and they're very well coached. I don't expect their offense to put up big numbers at all. I think their run game's going to struggle. I think Fitzpatrick will have a few plays. Now, it definitely does depend on Devontae Parker because he's a big part of this offense. If Devontae Parker plays, I feel a lot more confident in a Dolphin cover here. But if he doesn't, then I'm a little skeptical. I'm not sure his status right now. But yeah, it's an one of those weird AFC East division matchups that I just want to stay away from. The Bills, they looked good in the first half of their game versus the Jets, but in the second half, they kind of let the Jets back in the game. They only beat the Jets, who are the worst team in the NFL by, I think, 10 points. So that's a tad concerning. As good as Josh Allen played, their run game couldn't get it going. I don't think their run game is as good as New England's. Their pass game's probably better, but Miami has the secondary pieces to match up with what the Bills have to offer in terms of their receivers. So I actually think this game is going to be really close, very competitive, and maybe one of the better games that not a lot of people are watching of the week. So I'm going to say the Bills win. They squeak it out, but the Dolphins cover. I know it's kind of a weird pick, but I just have a weird feeling. Sometimes you got to take that gut feeling sometimes. And I don't have enough balls to say that the Dolphins will win. So, but I do think people, like, we're going to get to this when we get to New England, but a lot of people are underestimating Miami, I think, just a little bit too much. Like, a little bit too much. Like, everyone in my comments is like, the Patriots just beat Miami. Like, they didn't beat a contender. We'll get to that when we get to it, but yeah. I still like Buffalo. I love Buffalo this year. This is just one of those weird games, guys. All right. Next game. This is not a weird game. Okay? I don't need to spend much time on this. San Francisco is going to win. San Francisco is going to cover. There is no way San Francisco loses 2 games in a row. I don't care if Kittle plays or not. They just did sign Mohamed Sanu, which I don't think is really going to be a big factor at all. But the Jets are terrible. The Jets are bad. Okay, their offense, they have no pieces that really scare you. Now Le'Veon Bell is on IR, okay? They got Jamison Crowder, and that's it. I think they put Richard Sherman. San Francisco put Richard Sherman on IR. Okay, maybe that will be a loss, but versus what receivers? Like, who do they got to cover here? Nobody. I mean, they're going to cover Chris Hogan? Like, I could cover Chris Hogan, I think. No offense. Good guy, but I think he's done. Okay, that's the point. What else? The pass rush of San Francisco is just going to overwhelm the Jets' offensive line. Just overwhelm it. That's basically the game right there. Like, Nick Bosa should have 2 sacks. Eric Armstead, these guys, D Ford, they're going to overwhelm Sam Darnold. That's going to be really the game in a nutshell. They can't run the ball, the Jets. Even with Bell, they couldn't run the ball versus anyone. Never mind San Francisco. And San Francisco is going to be pissed off. They just lost to the Cardinals. They're not going to come out flat here. If anything, they're going to come out steaming. And I think people underestimate how well the Cardinals match up with the 49ers. I said it last week in last week's preview. That's more so of a good matchup than actually the Cardinals being better than the 49ers. It's more so just the Cardinals match up with everything the 49ers do. So Kyle Shanahan, he's going to come out with a game plan. They're going to win. They're going to blow them out. And this is maybe the lock of the week. Only 7 points seems like not enough. This should definitely be double digits. I understand that the Jets are good versus the run, but I don't think that's enough to hold the 49ers to only winning by a score, right? So I'm going to go with the 49ers both ways. The Rams versus the Eagles. This is a pick'em now. It started, I think, is -1. I think for the Eagles minus. Was it the Eagles minus? No, the Rams -1. I think. Now it's a pick'em. It might go back. I don't know. But this is where it's at right now. This is one of the more interesting games of the week where I think we're going to learn about both teams. Because I think in week 1, a lot of people are going to dramatically react to how the Eagles blew a lead versus Washington. And they're going to take that too far that way. And then the Rams beating the Cowboys, people are going to react too far the other way. Like, I think the Rams are still a 6 to 9 win team. And I think the Eagles are still a 7 to 10 win team. The Eagles just had one of the dumbest game plans I've seen versus Washington. Literally, they walked into the game versus Washington and they said, what does Washington do well? We're going to walk right into that. This is what they did. The Eagles passed deep, vertical. They allowed Carson Wentz to hold the ball versus arguably the best pass rush in the NFL in Washington. They just got their quarterback beat up, and therefore they lost. They didn't run the ball enough in the second half. They didn't protect the lead. They did nothing to do that. On the flip side, the Rams won because of their coach. They won because of their scheme, because of their game plan, not because of their players, in my opinion, outside of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and maybe, Robert Woods. But other than that, they didn't really win because of the players that outperformed the Cowboys players. It was because of McVay who outperformed McCarthy. I think the Eagles win this game, and here's why. The Eagles, I know this is like 2 seasons ago, but the Eagles blew the Rams out 2 years ago by like 25 points. These rosters, these coaching staffs are mostly the same, the main pieces. Now that's 1 point. Second point, the Eagles' strength is their defensive line. The Rams' weakness is their offensive line. The Eagles are going to completely shut down the Rams' running game. The Rams ran the ball versus the Cowboys. They will not be able to do that versus the Eagles. They will not. Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, Hargrave, Brandon Graham, all these guys, they're stout versus the run. They're not going to let the Rams work everything off of their running game. And that is therefore going to put Jared Goff in more real passing situations where it's not a screen, it's not a play action, it's a real, shotgun, I got to drop back and throw the ball. And when they do that, they don't have the offensive line to block these boys up front. And Darius Slay looked really good the first game versus Terry McLaurin. And that secondary, I think, is better this year. So they can handle the Rams receivers fairly well, I think. So on the flip side, they're getting Lane Johnson back this week. They're getting Miles Sanders back this week. Those are 2 of their best players. Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson are going to have a little bit more motivation. I think they took for granted their opponent last week. They will not do that with the Rams. So I just have a feeling this is a really good matchup for the Eagles. Just on paper, the Eagles match up very well with the Rams while they played right into the hand of Washington last week. And that's rare because Peterson is a good coach. He doesn't often do that. So I think he'll correct his mistakes and the Eagles will find a way to win. I don't think it's a blowout or anything like that. But again, another one here. Rams are traveling. They're now on the road. They're outside. They're not on a fast track surface. The Eagles, that grass surface is pretty rough. It's more built for Philadelphia than it is for the Rams as well. So even if there's no fans in Philadelphia, that does matter to me in terms of the style of play that this game will have. So the Eagles will win, and obviously it's a pick 'em, so they'll win. There you go. All right, let's get to some more comments before we hit the Broncos and the Steelers. That's the next game up. Nicholas is again pissed off that I did not pick the Bears. Bethel says Carson Wentz's grave will have Sunday's date. Comment 1 if you agree. Singh says Wentz versus Goff, first 2 picks in the 2016 draft class. Eagles win 21-14. Good. I forgot about that storyline. Opium says who's getting past Ramsey's press on the Eagles? Who's covering Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert on the Rams? Is that not a fair question? Do I think the Dolphins are good? No. Thank you for letting me clarify that, though. I don't think they're good. Los Angeles IKEA will win, in my opinion, says Prevail. Wentz is injury prone, guys. Just watch the way the guy plays. He puts himself in bad positions. He gets hit way too much. Bear down. We have a bear down comment. Chris says Jags could easily beat the Titans if Minshew plays like he did versus the Colts. The Titans are a much more complex defense. Their scheme is much better than the Colts defense. That's part of the reason I don't see that happening. Plus, it's very hard to replicate like one incompletion or whatever. Like, that's like almost impossible. Mr. Hot Take says, Mitch is out here disrespecting the Bills and the Bears. Do I even want to know what his Pats for Seahawks prediction is? Bruh. I might just pick the Patriots to spite everybody. Daniel says, do you think the Steelers are good? Yeah, they're good. I don't know if they're great, but I think they're good. Patriots suck this year. Hashtag see ya in January, okay? Hashtag, I said it. I said it in what, July? See ya in January, guys. That's all I'm going to say. Who's stopping Aaron Donald? Well, they do have Kelsey. Let's just hope they involve a little bit more, quick passing into their game plan this week for the Eagles, which I think they will. I think they'll learn. Sports Fury says the Bears, but I get it as to why you picked the Giants. Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of like, I don't know. That's one of those games where it's like two teams that I don't really know what they are yet. And I'm just leaning towards the team that I like the quarterback a little bit more. So, yeah. That's the biggest reason. Eric says, who do you think will be in second place at the end of the season in the NFC North? I'm going to say this. Whoever wins between Detroit and Green Bay this week is winning the division. Brett says, will the Saints miss a beat without Michael Thomas? We're going to get to that soon. All right, let's get back to the picks. Denver versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh -7 points after a big win over the Giants. Started a little slow for Big Ben Roethlisberger, but turned it on in the second half. Denver, their defense looked really good, and it kind of made me sad because with Von Miller, this could have been the best defense in the NFL. That's how good they looked versus Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. And even without Von Miller, they still put up a pretty good fight. And Von Miller is, like you guys know, one of the top 5 pass rushers in the NFL. With him, they could have been really awesome. But of course, they don't have him. The Steelers, their defense is amazing. Like, this probably is the best defense in the NFL after week 1 from what we saw, turnover-wise, pass rush-wise, run defense-wise. They were just completely overwhelming that offensive line of the Giants. They were in the face of Daniel Jones constantly. They let Saquon go for negative yards most of the game. And their secondary is not as good as people think, but it's still solid. Their front seven is so good that their cover guys just don't really matter as much. And it's not like the Broncos. Here's the problem with the Broncos. The Broncos don't have a quarterback that I'm confident enough to say he's going to make the decisions quick enough and get rid of the football quick enough for them to execute at a high level versus this team. And then on the flip side, I just like Big Ben, and he looked good. I understand he started slow, but he was still making the throws. Like, he was putting the ball into a tight window. His receivers were making plays. Claypool, Johnson, Juju looked pretty good. Like, these guys were making plays with the ball in the air, And the Broncos do have a lackluster secondary that I kind of already feel, especially at cornerback, is already a little beat up. I think the Steelers win, and I'm going to say they cover. I'm not positive about the cover. Just as Tom says, he says the Steelers will win, not sure if they'll cover. I agree. I think they're going to win because I think their defense is going to do a great job of stifling the Broncos' offense. I don't think the Broncos will be able to run the football well, which I think is going to force Locke into some awkward situations. Does Courtland Sutton play? That will help. But I also think the Broncos defense is a heck of a lot better than the Giants defense. And Ben did struggle in spurts in that game versus a bad Giants defense. So it really depends on how sharp Ben is. But considering this is his first game back in Pittsburgh, even without fans, Pittsburgh, better at home. Ben, better at home. I thought they got their chemistry down in that second half. I think that they carry this into week 2, and I think they do enough in the passing game, considering that Von Miller is not there to get pressure after Ben, where they can put up enough points to cover. I'm going to say the Steelers win 24-10. Something like that. 20-10, 23-13, 24-13, something like that. So I'm going to say the Steelers win, the Steelers cover. Because, again, like I talked about with the Titans outplayed the Broncos. The game shouldn't have been as close as it was. So, going with the Steelers here. Next game. Washington at Arizona. Arizona is -7. This is a game it's not going to be anywhere close to my best bets. And the reason is because I think people are going to completely overrate the Cardinals' week 1 win. It was versus San Francisco. But again, guys, I said this already. Just go back and watch those games from last year. You could argue that in both of those games, even though the Cardinals were a worse team than they are now, they should have beat the 49ers last year. They should have at least once. They were within a score both games. And Kyler, that team gives them a lot of difficulties. Here's the thing. Is Kyler just too mobile for Washington's front seven? Are the Cardinals just too good for basically, is their offense just as it's made to defeat the 49ers defense and their scheme and their pass rush? Is the Cardinals, are they capable of doing the same thing to Washington's front? Are they going to get the ball out quickly? Is Kyler too mobile and quick for him to put himself in bad situations like Carson Wentz to turn the football over, to make a mistake? Can he just escape the pressure and throw the ball away? I think what Cliff showed us last week is that he's just a really good schemer at picking up those short yardage situations, at getting the ball quickly out of Kyler's hand, giving him options in the screen game or the short passing game. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a big asset here. I think this is going to be very close to the number because I actually think Washington's defense, the area that they could give Arizona a lot of issues, I think Arizona's run game is not going to be there. So it's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Kyler. And Kyler is good. And the offense is good. But I do believe in this Washington defense to make it competitive. The question is, can Washington's offense be good enough to keep them within the 7? I just don't know. I mean, they were good last week, but it was kind of like smoke and mirrors, right? Now they're on tape for 1 week, and they only averaged 3 yards per play in that win, which is ludicrously low. They can give them to, like Chris says right here, Washington's defensive line is elite, and they can give them a chance to win every single game. Plus, the Cardinals' offensive line is not 100%. And to start with, Chris, it's not good. The Cardinals' offensive line is not good, but they did well versus a very good pass rush in the 49ers. And the Cardinals' defense played very well last week. They were great tackling wise. They didn't give up any big plays except for the one play versus Mostert. The run game was shut down of the 49ers, which is not easy to do. And the new players look good. Jordan Phillips, right? Devondre Campbell. Those guys looked good. I think that this is a lower scoring game. I take the under. I'm going to go Cardinals 23, Washington 13. So I'm going to say they cover, but I'm not confident about it at all. I think the Cardinals win, and I'm gonna say they cover as well. That's a tough one. I wanted to take Washington, but I just do not, or I wanted to take them to cover, but I just do not have enough confidence in what I saw from their offense in week 1. All right. Baltimore versus Houston. One of the bigger games of the week. Baltimore, minus a touchdown and an extra point, 7 points. This is a terrible matchup for Houston. It's just not good. It's not. Baltimore has, okay, let's look at it this way. Houston has a really good receiving core. What does Baltimore have? A really good secondary. Houston, defense. Their run defense it got feasted on by Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Who do they play this year? Or this week, I should say. A team that can run the ball pretty good. That's Baltimore. And what does Houston give up in the secondary? Big plays. They got Marquise Brown. I think this is a total coaching mismatch on both sides of the football. Baltimore is so much better than Houston in terms of the coaching matchup. I like Bill O'Brien. Like I'm actually on the other side of people. Like I think he's actually a better coach. He's a bad GM, but he's a better coach than people give him credit for. Baltimore is just, they look so good. They look so crisp. They looked just in mid-season form, the way they were running the ball. Like, they were so good that nobody cared. Like, Lamar Jackson looked better this year. He looked better in week 1 than he did last year when he won the MVP. He looked better as a passer. I mean, it was crazy. So, and their secondary is really good. They got better guys up front to contain that Houston rushing attack and what they give them. I think this is a blowout. I think this is like 30-16. Like something like that. 30-14. It was a blowout last year, and I don't see anything that changes this matchup. Maybe O'Brien, but like in week 1, they seemed out of sync, this offense for Houston. The receivers, Deshaun Watson. There was no fallback option in DeAndre Hopkins. Brandon Cooks and Watson seemed to not have chemistry. Will Fuller was the only real guy doing anything of note. Like, yeah, David Johnson was a good story in the first half, but I just don't see it from Houston's perspective. I don't like their defense, and I don't like this coaching matchup. I don't like this scheming matchup. I think Baltimore destroys them. So there you go. Only coach worse than Bill O'Brien is Adam Gase, says Rockin' Rob. Wow. Okay. Interesting. You guys are ripping Bill O'Brien apart, man. Chris says Texans are a disappointment this year. O'Brien needs to be fired ASAP. The Texans want to go anywhere at this point. Ultra says, I think Baltimore dominates here. Baltimore runs all over Houston, and Baltimore secondary locks up Houston's receivers. Baltimore wins 34-13. Baltimore has everything, if we're being honest, from Mr. James. LeBron James. Wow, game-winning field goal, says Deshaun Drakeford. Brett, 47-17 Ravens. Tom says Bill O'Brien leaves the game in the third quarter and goes for a cheeseburger. All right. Next game. Kansas City, LAC. This is one of my favorite bets of the week. Take Kansas City. Don't even worry about it. I understand the Chargers defense plays Mahomes pretty well, but what I saw from the Chargers offense was not pretty. And that was versus the Bengals, okay? I think this is another game where the Chargers struggle to move the football. And as good as the Chargers defense is, and as talented as the Chargers defense is, even without Derwin James, there comes a point in the game where Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs, they score points. They just do. And I don't see the Chargers scoring more than 14 points. I'm going to be honest. I think this should definitely be 10, at least 10 points. At least double digits. This spread is not even double digits. This is another, I think, borderline blowout. I think it's going to be something like 27-10. Like a pretty easy cover. The Chargers defense will make it interesting, but it's going to be excruciating to watch the Chargers and Tyrod Taylor try to create some sort of offense. Like, I just don't see it happening. Even though the Chiefs defense isn't very good, they look pretty good to me versus the Texans offense, which we know is a heck of a lot better than the Chargers. And by the way, have a mobile quarterback who's better than Tyrod Taylor. The Chargers struggled to move the ball versus the Bengals. Okay? The Chargers are bad. I don't think they're going to be good at all. I think they're going to win. Like, I projected them to win 5 games this year. I think that might have been being nice. As good as their defense is, they probably should have lost to the Bengals. If AJ Green doesn't push off, they lose. What's the spread if they lose? 14? I mean, how is this not a 14, like 2 touchdown or at least double digit spread? It makes no sense to me. I'm taking the Chargers by at least 2 to 3 scores. At least. Plus, Andy Reid has had all offseason to just think of more ways to torch this Seattle scheme defense. He did it versus the 49ers. Right? He understands that the one defense that gave him issues was the Chargers. You don't think he's going to have a couple jet wasps up his sleeve to throw versus this defense? Especially considering he had 2 weeks to prepare for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. That's an extra week where he was just drawing up plays versus this scheme. This is easy. Take the Chiefs and laugh. All right. Sunday night. The New England Patriots and Cam Newton travel to Seattle in the stream of the week, Sunday Night Football. And the funny thing to me is that NBC is still trying to get us to believe that this is a Super Bowl rematch. Tom Brady isn't even playing, and they're still like playing the Malcolm Butler interception as the commercial to lead up to the game. Like, Malcolm Butler's not on the team anymore. Like, this isn't a Super Bowl rematch. That game was played in 2014 or 2015. Not in 2020. It wasn't even last year. It wasn't 2 years ago. It wasn't 3 years ago. It wasn't 4 years ago. It was like 6 years ago that game happened, not last year. It's Cam versus Russ. This is the game of the week. This is the most interesting game of the week. I want to see a lot of these matchups, man. I want to see Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf versus the Patriots secondary and Bill Belichick. I want to see that. And then on the flip side, I want to see Cam Newton, the Patriots offensive line, and that rushing attack that they showed in week 1 versus Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner. That's a matchup. I actually expect this game to be defensive. I think it's going to be low 20s. I think it's going to be like 24-21, 24-20, somewhere around the 4 points. 23, like 20, something like that. I don't think it's going to get close. I don't think it's going to be in the 30s. I think it's going to be in the low 20s, that sort of thing. I think this is where it gets really interesting. The Seahawks and Pete Carroll did have success facing Cam Newton in the past, except for like 2015 when Cam Newton won the MVP. But that was without Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels has been one of the best OCs at facing this defense. And that was with the Legion of Boom. So if Cam Newton can execute the schemes and the plays that McDaniels gives him versus these coverages and versus this scheme, Patriots got a good chance to win. I think it ultimately comes down to, can the Patriots stay in third and manageable situations, third and short? If they can, they'll win the game. If the Seahawks are forcing them on first and second down into third and long, that's the weakness of the Patriots offense and team. The other side, I don't see Wilson cooking in this game. I think he's going to have a few plays where he makes something happen, obviously. But this is the best pass defense in the NFL. This is the best secondary in the NFL. I expect Gilmore to take DK Metcalf, probably Jonathan Jones, and possibly a double team on Tyler Lockett for much of the game, with J.C. Jackson shadowing like David Moore and probably Jawan Williams on Greg Olsen. Jawan Williams, by the way, played very, very well versus Mike Gesicki. Like, took him out of the game. Like, he didn't do anything. So that's promising. That's another addition to the secondary that looks pretty good, who was a second-round pick last year. Adrian Phillips for this defense looked really good in week 1. Another addition to the secondary. It seemed like Jason McCourty played a lot of safety last week. I expect that to be the case again this week. I think Chris Carson is going to have, and here's the thing. I think the Patriots' game plan is going to be, let Chris Carson get the ball. Like, we're going to take away the deep shots from the Seahawks. We're going to take away the big play passing attack, and we're going to try and contain Russell Wilson within the pocket. But they're probably going to say, okay, but Carson can probably run for 100 yards. So if you have Chris Carson, start him in fantasy, because I think the Patriots are going to play a lot of light fronts. They're not going to load the box. They're going to allow the Seahawks to run the ball. That's what I think is going to happen. Not sure, but that's what I think is going to happen. They're going to take away the passing game, and they're going to try and force the Seahawks to run the ball versus light fronts. And they're going to say, eventually you're going to get in third down, and eventually we're going to make you punt. Like, that's, I think, their game plan in this game. On the flip side, I think the Seahawks are going to load the box. They're going to play their traditional defense. Jamal Adams is going to be like another linebacker. And they're going to say, okay, Cam, you got to beat us through the air. And the question is, can they do that? And I don't think I have enough evidence yet that the Patriots can do that. Like, I need to see more out of the Patriots to say that they can beat a team the caliber of the Seahawks. So, even though I think the Patriots match up well with Seattle, and I think this game's going to be really good, I'm going to take the Seahawks to win. But because I think the Patriots do have a realistic chance of winning, I am going to take the 4 points. I do think this is a one-score game and very well a field goal game. Every game these two teams play, it seems like it goes down to the last drive for either team. So that's the way I see it. Stream of the week, Patriots, +4, Seahawks, outright. And for all of you people saying, the Patriots, they still suck, they just beat Miami, I got one thing to say to you, all right? You are an absolute dummy. There you go. All right. Patriots +4. Let's get some comments for this game before we get to Monday Night Football. And guys, if you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL breakdowns, predictions, previews, and weekly picks. All right. Ken says, I can't wait to see this game. I don't think the Pats are good or as good as they were. Deshaun says 2 Metcalf touchdowns. Wow. If he gets 2 touchdowns versus Stephon Gilmore and Stephon Gilmore's covering him, I will send you $20. Bethel says Seahawks 29-20. Mr. Singh says, wait all day for Sunday night. Pats win in an upset 17-10. Coach says tough road trip out west. Hawks take Superman and the Pats by 8-10. Gary says 28-20 Seattle. Brian says Patriots need a deep threat. Oh, this is something that you reminded me of, Brian. I think Damiere Byrd, I know a lot of people don't know who that is going to have one play where he has a 30-plus yard catch. That's my prediction for the game. They should trade for Mohamed Sanu. I think that's a funny joke you're trying to make. I think they should trade for Odell Beckham is what they should do. Colin says Seahawks 41, Patriots 27. Ultra said, Mitch, who reminded you of that clip? I'll give you credit. Yusef says 27-20 Seahawks. Lori says Cam is a beast. I agree, Lori. I hope Cam wins this game. Brett says Cam looked amazing. Yes, he did. Rob says, did I miss the Thursday night game? Yes, but it will be up on the channel, so don't worry about that. Can the Saints win the Super Bowl? Yeah, sure. Zane says Seahawks 28-20. Bethel says 12-4 in the Pick'em, tied 13th in a league with hundreds in the Goat House League. Nice. 31-28, Bill Murray says Patriots. Joseph says 24-21, Patriots. Joker says 27-14, Seahawks. 27-20 says Brett for the Pats. King says he heard that the Pats are getting OBJ. Dawn says Detroit in the damn building. Dawn, I better see you on Sunday. 2017 Patriots. All right. So it feels fairly split in terms of picks. Andrew says 27-20 Seahawks. So most people agree it's going to be a close game. I think that's fair. I hope it's a good game. And I think it should be based on history of both Cam Newton versus the Seahawks and New England versus the Seahawks. All right. And the final game, Monday Night Football. The Las Vegas Raiders head to New Orleans. Yes, the Superman and the Birdman. Yes, that's the combo. Las Vegas Raiders, New Orleans Saints. Michael Thomas out on IR for 3-ish weeks. Ish. All right? I don't exactly know how long, but ish. The Raiders beat the Panthers. I think it was 34-30 last week. The Saints defeated the Bucs I think this is probably, spoiler, going to be one of my bets of the week. I think the Saints, this number might even go down due to the Michael Thomas news. I think the Saints beat the Raiders by at least double digits. And here's why. The Saints, their offense, yes, it didn't look good in week 1, but they played the Bucs defense. This week, and people don't understand how good the Bucs defense is yet, except for you and I, okay? They don't realize that the Bucs defense is legitimately good, while the Raiders defense is legitimately bad. Oh yes, this game's in Las Vegas. Sorry. This game is in Las Vegas, but no fans regardless. So, the Raiders defense sucks. They got lit up by Teddy Bridgewater. Not only did they get lit up by Teddy Bridgewater, but they got lit up by the same scheme, just a worse version, okay? Their scheme in Carolina is now a take on New Orleans' Sean Payton's scheme. You don't think Sean Payton is going to watch the game from last week and be like, oh, they did this play that we install in week 2 of training camp every year, and it just destroyed their defense. Instead, he's going to have week 2 of training camp on top of 20 years of repertoire of looking at all the plays he's had over the history with him and Drew Brees and be like, Drew, I like this play, I like that play, I like this play. Plus, they got a running game in New Orleans. They got a great offensive line. Drew Brees is not going to get touched versus one of the weaker pass rushes in the game. This is an easy game. This is an easy win for me. I'd be shocked if this were close. I know Michael Thomas is not playing, but now they got Emmanuel Sanders who they can insert into that slot position, into that same role, into that same spot, and can run the similar type of routes and do the same type of things. Not as an elite level, but still at a good level. And then defensively, the Saints are good. And what's the strength of the Saints defense? Run defense. Okay? Josh Jacobs is the strength of the Raiders offense. Everything is based off what Josh Jacobs does on the ground. The Saints defense is great versus the run. It was great versus the Bucs, and their secondary and their pass defense has improved. I just do not see any way, shape, or form how the Raiders pull off an upset. It would have to take a great special teams performance and a couple turnovers. So, I don't understand why it's only 6 points, honestly. I'm going to say the Saints win. The Saints win by double digits. And Saints fans, you guys will be 2-0 at the end of the week. And get a win without Michael Thomas, who is your best player. Something I want to see from an intrigue perspective is how much more do we see of the Taysom Hill offense this week? Do we see more? Do we see less? Because I do think he needs to be more involved. I also think Deontay Harris needs to be more involved in this offense because every time he gets the ball, he's scary with the ball in his hands. So those are two guys that I just think the Saints need to find a way to get on the field more. But I have been impressed with their defense. So there you guys go. That's week number 2 of the 2020 NFL season. My picks, my preview, and my picks straight up and versus the spread. Guys, before we go, I do need to tell you 2 things, all right? Thank you guys for joining me here live. First, Patreon. In the description, BLV Patreon. If you want to know my best bets of the week, I give you 5 best bets. Subscribe to Patreon, $3 a month. You get my waiver wire targets. You get the Bottom Line extended edition where I review every game of the week. All right? You get my best bets. Exclusive content on Patreon, $3 a month. Go subscribe over there in the description. Second thing, I brought it up at the beginning of the video. BottomLineView, Instagram. We're back on Instagram. Exclusive content on Instagram, like the top 10 teams every single week. Go follow Instagram if you have an account. You can also follow me personally on all platforms at Mitch Milani, MITCHMILANI. And before we do go, Gronk, spike that like button so more people can see this. And Subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL vids just like this. All right. Somebody wants to know my record from last week. My best bets were 3-2. Should have been 4-1, but Gostkowski sucks. And straight up, I was 11-5. I will have a graphic for next week. I forgot to make a graphic for this week, but I'll make a graphic for next week where it shows like what my record is. But there you go. Week number 2. Dose of Dion in the chat. I got something to talk to you about, Dose of Dion, bro. I got something to talk to you about. Hey, let's just say it before I go. Who wants Dose of Dion on the Packers-Lions live stream? I think we need him on there. Because I'm streaming that game. I think we need him on there. Thanks, John. Go subscribe to John. Stanley Cup Finals right now. Mr. Hot Take Hockey. Go subscribe to him. He's well on his way to matching me in subscribers, so go subscribe to him. Dose of Dion says, let's do it. Let's make it happen, man. Let's do it. I'll have to talk to you on Instagram or message me on Instagram and I'll get back to you. What else we got here? Yeah. Jags are still losing a lot of games, guys. Don't worry. All right. So that's it. Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed, again, Gronk, spike that like button and subscribe for more. It's Mitch. See you soon. Tomorrow, start 'em and sit 'em for fantasy. Make sure you leave your comments, questions tomorrow in the start 'em and sit 'em so that I can reply to them in the video on Friday night or Saturday, okay? Make sure you leave your comments that day, tomorrow or on Friday, before I make the actual video responding to them so that I can go in depth so I don't have to respond to every comment, all right? Thanks, guys. Peace.